Among Mr. Putin's big guests attending the parade celebrating the 85th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War in Moscow recently, there was one leader who attracted special attention. Very young, with a military style, not wearing a suit but always wearing a typical military uniform. Wherever he went, he carried a special national flag that you will find oh so familiar. Like this or this. He is Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, whose flag is inspired by the Vietnamese liberation flag. Did you know that he arrived in Moscow just days after a coup attempt allegedly orchestrated by the West was intended to take the young leader's life? But that ambition has been thwarted with the help of none other than Mr. Putin's Russia. In West Africa, a rebellion is brewing, centered on a young soldier who seized power in a coup. But not the kind of coup the West would support. In just a few months, he did what few African leaders had dared to do. He expelled French troops, canceled military agreements, severed ties with Western financiers, and ended neo-colonialism disguised as freedom. To his supporters, Ibrahim was a revolutionary banner. To the West, he was a dangerous incident. So what happened in Burkina Faso? How did France lose its throne, and how did Russia enter the game? This is the Sahel, a strip of land south of the Sahara Desert that stretches from the Western Ocean in the west to the Red Sea in East Africa. The region has seen frequent political unrest, with the rise of jihadist groups believed to be linked to terrorism in recent years. The West, and in particular France, the former motherland of many Sahel countries, has sought to establish its influence there through its war on terror. Since 2013, French troops have been stationed in Mali and have since expanded their presence to include Burkina Faso, Niger, Mauritania, and Chad under Operation 3K. At the height of the operation, France had around 5,100 troops stationed in the region, but somehow, the Sahel remains one of the most dangerous regions in the world. Between 2017 and 2020, the number of attacks on civilians in the Sahel has increased fivefold. The people of the Sahel, especially in Mali and Burkina Faso, are fed up with these useless French soldiers. For them, the French military presence here brings no benefits, but is like an extension of the colonial regime that the mother country is trying to re-establish on African soil. Meanwhile, what has the Burkina Faso government done? Since independence in 1960, Burkina Faso has seen more coups than any other African country. 9 successful and at least a dozen failed. In 1966, Colonel Lamazana overthrew President Jamelko after mass protests against austerity and authoritarianism. France maintained close diplomatic relations without sanctions or anger. In 1980, Lamazana was overthrown by Colonel Kabore. Another coup, another military man, another promise of reform, but the economy remained stagnant and foreign aid was the lifeline of the country. In 1982, Major Jiang Paptit overthrew Kabore and promised reform again. In 1983, Captain Thomas Sankara took power. He cut government waste, boosted industry, and launched a war against corruption, hoarding, and foreign control. In 1987, Sankara was overthrown and killed by his closest ally in a French-backed coup. Ushering in nearly 3 decades of authoritarian, pro-Western, neoliberal rule, the traitor himself was overthrown in a popular uprising in 2014 when he attempted to change the constitution to extend his rule. He fled to the Ivory Coast. His allies in Paris did not offer a word of support. In January 2022, Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba overthrew the civilian government of President Kabore, claiming that he had failed to contain the jihadist insurgency. Damiba, however, maintained close ties with France, stationing French troops and maintaining agreements with Paris. Finally, in September 2022, Grandmaster Ibrahim Traoré overthrew Damiba, accusing him of betraying the revolutionary cause and protecting foreign interests. In short, everything changed in Burkina Faso in 1987 when Sankara was overthrown. The revolution that had threatened French mining contracts and Western domination was crushed. The Burkina regime was installed. For 27 years, a traitor held the throne with the approval of the Western powers. Burkina Faso's gold mines were opened wide for foreign corporations to exploit. Industries were privatized, and France re-established de facto control. Burkina Faso became what scholars call a semi-sovereign state, externally independent but internally guided by external dictates. Growing up in such a country, Ibrahim was unlike many of his generation who fled abroad or retreated into silence. He chose to join the army. The reality of the conflict in the Sahel gradually dawned on Ibrahim. The West's war on terror was not a security partnership, but a cover for neo-colonialism. He began to question it. Why are the missions underfunded, despite receiving billions of dollars in foreign aid? Intelligence about extremist activities is often hidden or delayed. French forces in the region seem more concerned with protecting mining corridors than protecting civilians. Internal mistrust has grown as Ibrahim has served in the ranks of Damiba's transitional government. The young soldier was further disappointed when Damiba promised a new direction, but refused to sever ties with France. French troops remained on Burkina Faso's border. Agreements remained hidden. Life for the people was getting worse. And then in September 2022, when Ibrahim entered the capital with loyal units, it was not just a coup against Damiba, but an overthrow of the oppressive system that had been weighing down Burkina Faso. A 35-year-old unknown soldier had just overthrown a pro-French general and declared that Burkina Faso would reclaim its destiny. Fast forward to the present day, when the young leader publicly acknowledged Sankar's legacy, fanning the flames of anti-neo-colonialism. In colonial policy, there was an unwritten rule that you could rebel. But within the bounds of what was allowed, Ibrahim not only went beyond the bounds, he tore up the paper. Within 4 months of taking power, he had expelled the French army and ended Operation Sabre, a terrorist force based at a base near Ouagadougou. He also ended a military agreement that had existed since 1961, allowing French forces to intervene in Burkina Faso's internal affairs at will, a legacy of the colonial past. He did not stop there. He closed the media outlets RFI and France 24, accusing them of broadcasting false information and destabilizing. He banned French NGOs from engaging in what he called intelligence gathering under the guise of development. Burkina Faso produces more than 70 tons of gold a year, making it one of Africa's 5 largest gold producers. Yet 90% of that wealth is controlled by foreign companies, mainly Canadian, British, Australian, and French. Ibrahim began auditing all mining contracts, reviewing contracts signed under pro-French governments, and criticizing the gold drain that left the country underdeveloped while European countries benefited. While France's relations with Burkina Faso were virtually severed, the U.S. relationship with the country also deteriorated significantly. After the coup, Washington suspended Burkina Faso's access to U.S. markets and passed a law prohibiting military assistance to the country. So how did Russia get into the picture? Since at least 2018, the Russian private military company Wagner has been present in the Sahel, helping to suppress insurgencies alongside local forces. In short, the French were kicked out while Russia proved itself a much more reliable security partner. Then the war in Ukraine broke out, and Russia further strengthened its ties with Africa. At the St. Petersburg summit in 2023, Russian President Vladimir Putin pledged to provide tens of tons of grain to African countries for free. The West, of course, did not like this. Western media called Ibrahim Putin's puppet. Ibrahim's rise came after confidence in Western-backed governments had collapsed. In addition to the information campaign, the West is believed to be secretly supporting the plot to overthrow the young leader. On April 21st, the Burkina Faso government announced that it had foiled a plot to attack the presidential palace. This was a carefully planned plot involving rebel organizations, active and retired military personnel. The coup was part of a larger plan, and its purpose was not simply to seize power. Its details exposed a network of plotters with close ties to foreign entities vying for control of Burkina Faso's vital resources. It sounds sickening, but it was just one of many unsuccessful attempts to overthrow Ibrahim. Unsurprisingly, The president immediately sought Russian support to protect himself, his government, and Burkina Faso from its enemies. Russian fighter jets are patrolling Burkina Faso's airspace. Russian commanders are tasked with protecting President Ibrahim and other senior government figures. Their presence is intended to deter future attempts on the president's life and ensure an immediate response to any potential military or political incident. Russian forces are also helping train Burkina Faso's armed forces to counter the growing threat from insurgents and internal intrigue. Russian commandos are teaching sophisticated tactical knowledge, counterintelligence methods, and surveillance tactics to build a strong security apparatus that will help Burkina Faso cope with the coming difficulties. The presence of the Burkina Faso president at the victory parade is a testament to the increasingly close ties between Russia and this far-flung country. That is also what makes the West even more nervous. After Burkina Faso, it was Mali and Niger's turn to have coups, and it was similar in Burkina Faso. On the streets of Mali and Niger, people poured into the streets to celebrate, kicking out the French, waving Russian flags, and chanting Putin's name. If this movement continues to spread, if one day Africa is no longer dependent on foreign countries, the West, whose economy has developed by sucking resources from Africa, will have to face the question: will they have anything left to eat? What do you think about the uprising of African countries against colonialism in the name of freedom? Please leave your comments and discuss with me in the comment section. Now, goodbye, and see you again.